I know you were expecting Rosanna Berardi. She had an unexpected conflict, and we didn't want to leave you hanging on our Facebook Live today. So I'm here to share with you what we expect. We'll be discussing what we expect from incoming President Donald Trump as it pertains to U.S. immigration. And interestingly, based on recent reports, we hear that Trump is expected to sign over 100 executive orders in his first few days in office. A bunch of these include immigration initiatives. So what I'm going to do is break them down today, because with a Republican-controlled House and Senate, we know that his immigration agenda is likely to gain more traction than it did during his first term. However, it's one thing to sign executive orders, and it's another to put them into action. There's a lot of challenges that we're going to see. Numerous legal challenges are expected. We know that advocacy groups are ready to fight some of these executive orders. So let's kind of break them down. There are 5 main executive orders regarding immigration that we expect to see. The first one, you've seen and heard about it in the news, mass deportations. So the plan is that President Trump wants to accelerate deportation of undocumented immigrants with a special focus on individuals who have final orders of removal. That's basically a deportation order, and also focus on those with criminal convictions. There's a lot of talk in the news. How would this impact those who are kind of laying low, who entered the United States unlawfully? And we really don't have clarity on that. It remains to be seen what the administration will actually prioritize. Will they really only focus on just criminals and those with final removal orders? We don't know. But the implementation of mass deportations is going to be really difficult. The effort's going to involve expanding immigration and customs enforcement operations, that's ICE, and leveraging state and local law enforcement for cooperation. There are a lot of states that do not want to see mass deportations. Their economy and a lot of jobs and industries, particularly those in agriculture, they rely on foreign nationals who are here in the United States with or without status. So we expect to see legal challenges here, particularly around due process, especially with the resources for rolling out mass deportations. I mean, it's such a large-scale operation. So we have yet to see how that will actually play out despite a signed executive order on mass deportations. Executive order number 2, ending birthright citizenship. This one has also really hit the headlines hard. Trump plans to sign an executive order that will declare that the United States will no longer grant automatic citizenship to children who are born on U.S. soil to undocumented immigrants and non-citizens with temporary visas. Now, this is a big deal because this move challenges the 14th Amendment, which has traditionally been interpreted to guarantee birthright citizenship. That means that anyone born on U.S. soil outside of immigration status, anyone born on U.S. soil is automatically a U.S. citizen. This has been the thing since the Constitution was signed and 14th Amendment was put into play. So we're expecting immediate legal battles questioning the constitutional validity of this order. It will probably go all the way up to Supreme Court review. And it'll be really interesting to see how this one plays out. Those who are opposed to ending birthright citizenship claim that it's a very slippery slope. We don't want to mess with the Constitution and what is actually written in the 14th Amendment. There's also concerns about how this would impact individuals who are here lawfully on a visa status who happen to have kids. While they're in the United States, lawfully working. Where is equity and fairness to that? So it'll be very interesting to see that one play out. Our third executive order that we are expecting to see is the reinstating the Remain in Mexico policy. We saw this during Trump's first term. And this is where the executive order plan is to restore what's called the Migrant Protection Protocols. This requires asylum seekers to stay in Mexico while awaiting U.S. immigration court proceedings. Currently, individuals can come into the United States, claim asylum, they are released into American society, and they're given a court date to show up later. The goal of reinstating the Remain in Mexico policy is to reduce the volume of asylum seekers crossing the border. It's also to defer frivolous asylum claims. The implementation of that's going to be tough. The Trump administration would need to really closely work with Mexican authorities to ensure infrastructure and resources on the southern border, particularly on the Mexican side, to manage the number of asylum seekers that are sitting there in Mexico. So the critics say that this policy really exposes migrants to unsafe conditions in Mexico, and that they have incredible limitations to legal or humanitarian resources. Really tough. The proponents for this say we need to control the number of individuals entering the United States and claiming asylum. We need to stop frivolous asylum claims. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Let's go on to the fourth executive order, is construction again of Trump's border wall. This one isn't a new one. We know that the Trump administration is a huge proponent for building and even accelerating the construction of the US-Mexico border wall. However, the order is purported to increase federal funding allocated for this purpose. The goal is to enhance the physical barrier, to reduce illegal crossings, right? And Trump wants to fulfill his campaign promise. He wants stricter border security, who wants to stop the flow of migrants coming in unlawfully through the southern border and not going through proper inspection. So where do we see challenges here? Funding is going to be the biggest hurdle. There's also dispute with private landowners and the seizure of land. So we kind of expect to see that also come up through an executive order putting this into play. And there's internal GOP divisions on this issue. So differences within the Republican Party regarding costs and the practicality of such a large-scale initiative, the timing for the acceleration of the construction that could emerge. And lawmakers representing different border districts could resist aggressive land seizures. There's also concerns about environmental disruptions that we've read about. So it will be really interesting to see how this one plays out, particularly among the Republican Party and lawmakers on the southern border. And then last but not least, you've heard the term sanctuary cities. We do expect to see Trump's executive order to possibly cut federal funding to sanctuary cities. And sanctuary cities, as a reminder, are jurisdictions that limit cooperation with federal immigration enforcement. So local authorities may arrest someone who does not have lawful status, and if they are in a sanctuary city, they will release them back into society if it was not a violent crime. So the pressure here by issuing an executive order that will impact federal funding to these sanctuary cities is to put pressure on local governments to assist ICE in identifying and detaining undocumented immigrants, okay? The Supreme Court previously limited the federal government's power to withhold funds, making this particular executive order probably susceptible to further challenges. And in Trump's first term, legal challenges delayed or blocked several executive orders related to sanctuary cities and federal funding. That also included attempts to redirect military funding for the border wall, going back to the last one we spoke about. So again, we expect to see major challenges and significant constitutional questions. Each of these executive orders signals an aggressive shift in immigration policy that we haven't necessarily seen in the last 4 years. So we do expect to also see equally strong opposition from advocacy groups, legal institutions, state governments. Many of these executive orders and initiatives mirror Trump's first term. So the Remain in Mexico policy was one of them. Expanded deportations, construction of the border wall. So we do expect to see Trump's legal team come at these with some tighter writing when it comes to the written executive orders. But like I said in the beginning, it's one thing to sign off on a written order and it's another to actually implement it. So we do expect to see legal and logistical delays. Again, while we have a unified GOP, Congress will provide probably more legislative support towards these. There's still a lot of challenges, and the success will really depend on how the courts navigate constitutional boundaries and how we see the chips fall in terms of managing public and intra-party opposition, and overall just overcoming legal roadblocks that defined Trump's term the first time around. So inauguration is next week. We expect a lot of action. We have one more Facebook Live scheduled for tomorrow. Tune back in. We'll be giving our expectations and kind of our opinions on what we expect to see. So please join us again. And thanks to everyone for tuning in today.